Liberty International Airport buzzed with life, passengers hurrying to their gates, announcements echoing overhead, and security officers keeping a watchful eye. Among them was Captain Richard Daniels, a man revered for his leadership and dedication to justice. With a firm handshake and a confident smile, he moved through the terminal, exchanging greetings with officers and staff. To the world, he was the embodiment of integrity, the reassuring presence that kept order in one of the busiest airports. But beneath the polished badge and commanding presence lay a different reality, one carefully hidden from the public eye. Officer Megan Carter, a diligent and observant cop, had started noticing the cracks. At first, it was small things, a missing report, an unaccounted delay in a case, but the inconsistencies piled up. Daniels wasn't just making mistakes, he was covering something up. The weight of suspicion grew heavier as she pieced together the unsettling truth. And as she watched him from across the terminal, she realized she was about to uncover something far more dangerous than she had ever anticipated. One evening, as Megan Carter patrolled the terminal, her sharp eyes caught something unusual. Captain Richard Daniels standing near a quiet baggage claim, exchanging brief words with a man in a dark coat. The man's face was partially obscured, his movements tense. Then, in a swift motion, he slipped an envelope into Daniels's hand before disappearing into the crowd. Megan's heart pounded. Daniels barely glanced around before tucking the envelope into his jacket and walking away as if nothing had happened. Something wasn't right. Determined to find answers, she headed straight to the security office, pulling footage from the last few weeks. The more she watched, the more troubling patterns emerged. Daniels meeting the same man in different parts of the airport, using blind spots to avoid cameras. It wasn't just one suspicious moment. It was a pattern. Digging deeper, Megan cross-referenced Daniels's financial records with airport security logs, uncovering a connection she hadn't expected, a shell company operating under an unassuming name, tied to multiple flagged transactions, smuggling, money laundering, even ties to known criminals. It was bigger than she thought, and she couldn't take it on alone. That's when she turned to Officer Jake Nolan, her longtime partner. At first, Jake hesitated, unwilling to believe that a man as respected as Daniels could be corrupt. "You're reaching, Megan. He's been here for years," he said, shaking his head. But when she laid out the evidence, documents, surveillance clips, financial trails, his doubt began to crack. A long sigh escaped him before he finally muttered, "All right, I'm in." The investigation had just begun, and they were about to expose something far more dangerous than they had imagined. Late one evening, Megan received an anonymous tip. Something big was coming through the airport. A shipment, disguised as medical supplies, was set to land on Flight 349. The informant didn't say much, only that Captain Daniels was involved and that Bay 14 was where the exchange would happen. Megan's pulse quickened. This was it, the proof they needed. She and Jake wasted no time, taking their findings to the DEA. Within hours, a full-scale sting operation was in motion. Airport security tightened unnoticed, plainclothes agents blended into the terminal crowd, and Megan and Jake positioned themselves near Bay 14, hidden but ready. The air was thick with anticipation. As Flight 349 touched down, the tension skyrocketed. On the tarmac, under the harsh glow of floodlights, cargo handlers moved crates with practiced efficiency. Then, just as expected, Daniels appeared. His movements were calm, calculated. He checked his watch, then glanced around as if waiting for something, or someone. Megan gripped the radio tighter, her heart pounding. This was their moment, but they had to be careful. One wrong move, and Daniels could walk away clean. Jake, crouched beside her, exhaled slowly. "We need to wait until he makes the handoff," he whispered. Megan nodded, eyes locked on Daniels. Minutes passed like hours. Then a truck rolled up to Bay 14, its back doors swinging open. Two men stepped out, one carrying a clipboard, the other reaching for a crate. Daniels approached, speaking in hushed tones before gesturing toward the shipment. That was it. The moment of confirmation. Megan pressed the radio. "Move in." Within seconds, the quiet night erupted into action. Agents swarmed in, weapons drawn, officers shouting commands. Daniels turned, eyes wide, realization sinking in. But there was nowhere to run. As Megan stepped forward, her badge raised, Daniels locked eyes with her. For the first time, the mask of authority cracked, revealing what lay beneath. It was over. Captain Daniels stood by the crates, arms folded, overseeing the final details of the shipment. A nervous-looking man in a hoodie stepped forward, holding out the clipboard. His hands shook as he signed the paperwork, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Daniels gave him a reassuring pat on the back, his usual calm demeanor now mixed with a hint of impatience. The transaction was almost complete. Megan, her heart racing, but her face a mask of professionalism, caught Jake's eye. She gave a subtle signal, one small nod, and within seconds, agents swarmed the area. It was like the snap of a rubber band, a carefully executed operation turning into an explosive confrontation. "Hands up, Daniels!" Megan's voice was firm as she stepped forward, her gun drawn. Daniels froze, his face flashing with a momentary shock. The calm, unflappable leader of the airport security team now stood on the other side of the law, caught in the act. His jaw clenched as he straightened, and a hard look crossed his features. "This is a mistake," Daniels growled, his hands subtly inching toward his jacket. But Megan was quicker. "Don't move." The air was thick with tension as Megan took another step forward, her eyes locked on his. For a moment, it seemed as if he might try to bluff his way out. But the sound of agents moving in from every direction left him with no escape. Suddenly, the suspect in the hoodie darted toward the side of the bay, attempting to make a break for it. Megan's eyes flicked to him just in time. "Jake!" she shouted. Without hesitation, Jake lunged forward, tackling the man to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The suspect grunted in surprise, but Jake's grip was firm, pinning him down as two agents quickly restrained him. Meanwhile, Megan motioned to the crates, her instincts telling her to check them before they lost their window. As the seals were broken and the crates opened, the unmistakable odor of cocaine hit the air, followed by the stark sight of tightly packed bags hidden beneath layers of fake medical supplies. The weight of the discovery was undeniable. Cocaine, millions of dollars worth, concealed in plain sight. The evidence was irrefutable. Daniels wasn't just a bystander. He was the mastermind. Megan's heart pounded in her chest as she looked back at him, the calm authority figure she had once trusted, now standing at the center of an elaborate criminal scheme. His eyes flickered, his composure crumbling. "You don't understand," he muttered, but the words were hollow. Megan took a deep breath, her voice steady as she spoke the words he couldn't escape. "It's over, Daniels." As the handcuffs clicked around Captain Daniels's wrists, the weight of the moment settled in. The smug, unshakable man who had once commanded respect now stood silent, his face contorted in a mix of anger and disbelief. Agents led him toward the waiting squad car, his eyes scanning the crowd, as if searching for an escape. Megan stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "You've made a mistake, Carter," Daniels sneered, his voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you've done." His words hung in the air, thick with menace, but Megan stood tall, her resolve unshaken. She met his glare without flinching. "Justice is long overdue," she replied, her voice firm. It wasn't just a statement. It was a promise. As the car drove off, Megan lingered for a moment, her thoughts racing. The arrest was a victory, but she knew it was only the beginning. Back at the station, she sat at her desk, flipping through the file that had led her here. The paperwork, the surveillance footage, the financial records, it was all right in front of her. But something nagged at the back of her mind. Daniels had been the tip of the iceberg, a well-connected piece in a much larger puzzle. She paused, her finger tracing the names and addresses of offshore accounts and shadow companies listed in the documents. There was something hidden in the depths, something even more dangerous than what they had already uncovered. Megan set the file down with a soft sigh, leaning back in her chair. The case had taken a dark turn, but her fight wasn't over. There were too many unanswered questions, too many loose ends. She knew Daniels was just one player in a much larger criminal network, and they were still out there, operating in the shadows. The pieces were scattered, but with each step, she was getting closer. She stared out the window, the city lights flickering in the distance, and whispered to herself, "This isn't over." The camera zoomed in on the file, the names and connections blinking in the dim light. As the screen faded to black, the hint of a larger conspiracy loomed, a dark force just out of reach, waiting to be exposed. As the case wrapped up, Megan sat quietly in her office, reflecting on everything that had unfolded. She thought back to the days when she had trusted Captain Daniels, when his leadership had been a beacon of integrity at Liberty International Airport. It was hard to fathom how easily corruption could hide behind the most respected figures, disguised by authority, charm, and a carefully crafted reputation. Daniels had worn his badge like a shield, but beneath it, he was just another man willing to betray the very system he swore to uphold. Megan had always believed that justice was black and white, but this case showed her how complex the world could be, how deeply corruption could infiltrate the places we trust the most. It wasn't just about exposing one bad cop. It was about tearing down the systems that allowed him to operate unchecked for so long. As the camera lingered on Megan, lost in thought, she turned back to face the audience, breaking the fourth wall. "Corruption can hide behind even the most respected figures," she said, her voice steady and direct. "But it's up to all of us to see through it and stand up for what's right." She paused for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle. What would you do if you discovered a corrupt officer in your own life? How would you handle it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The screen lingered on Megan's face, a quiet determination in her eyes as the video faded out, the story of justice unfolding with every word, every action, every decision made in the pursuit of truth.